Benny Andersson turned 78 quietly, the way he does most things. Not with announcements, but with a piano nearby and probably a melody forming somewhere in the back of his mind. Most people know his name because of ABBA, because of Dancing Queen and Waterloo, and the kind of pop music that somehow refuses to grow old or lose its grip on people. But the man behind those songs lived a life far more complicated than the glitter ever suggested, and for decades he kept most of it deliberately private. Now, pieces of that story are finally coming through, about the woman he married at the height of fame and then left for someone else, the children he had long before anyone knew his name, the divorce that quietly cracked the band's foundation, and what it actually means that all four ABBA members are still circling each other half a century later, making music and showing up in London balconies to make entire rooms of strangers cry. Benny was born on the 16th of December, 1946, in the Vasastan district of Stockholm, the son of a civil engineer named Gusta and a mother named Leila. His younger sister Eva arrives 2 years later. Music came early and from both sides of the family. His father played accordion, and so did his grandfather Ephraim. And when Benny turned 6, they bought him his own. Swedish folk music, traditional songs, a style called schlager. These were the sounds shaping his ear before he ever touched a piano. The first records he owned were Dubis Music by Caterina Valenti and Elvis Presley's Jailhouse Rock, and he especially loved the B-side, Treat Me Nice, because it featured piano. That detail mattered to him. At 10 years old, he got his own instrument and taught himself to play without a single formal lesson, absorbing every style he could find across Swedish folk music and whatever international pop made it through. School lost him by 15. He left and started performing at youth clubs across Sweden, which is also when he met Kristina Granqvist, his first girlfriend. Their son Peter arrived in 1963, and their daughter Helen in 1965. 2 children before Benny had turned 20, born long before anyone outside Sweden had reason to care who he was. In early 1964, he and Kristina joined a group called Elverkets Spelmanslag, which translates roughly as the Electricity Board Folk Music Group, a name that was always a joke about their electric instruments. They played instrumentals like Baby Elephant Walk, and this was where Benny began writing his first songs, quietly developing the craft that would eventually reshape pop music. October 1964 moved things forward sharply when Benny joins the pop band The Hepstars as their keyboardist, and by March 1965, they had broken through with their hit Cadillac. Within months, he'd gone from youth clubs to being one of the most recognized faces in Swedish pop. It wasn't just the keyboard player. He became the main musical force behind the group, writing songs that gave them their identity. No Response, Sunny Girl, Wedding, Consolation, It's Nice to Be Back, She Will Love You. Each hit built his reputation further, and each song showed something that would later become ABBA's signature, a gift for melody that felt both effortless and precise, the kind of quality you can't teach. June 1966 brought Bjorn Ulvaeus into his life. The two met and immediately started writing together, their first collaboration being Isn't It Easy to Say, which the Hepstars later recorded. Benny also worked with Lasse Berghagen, and one of those songs, Hey Clown, came second at the 1969 Melodifestivalen, Sweden's selection contest for the Eurovision Song Contest. That same event handed Benny something more lasting than a placement. He met singer Anni-Frid Lyngstad there, and they became a couple. Around the same time, Bjorn met Agneta Fältskog through his own work in Swedish pop. 2 friendships, 2 romances, and a shared instinct for melody. The architecture of what would become ABBA was already taking shape, even if nobody had a name for it yet. Their first songwriting hits together came in 1969, Ljuva 60-tal for Brita Borg and Spellman for the Hepstars. Recording sessions started pulling all 4 into the same rooms, and the blend of Agneta and Anni-Frid's voices convinced Benny and Bjorn that something different was happening around them. Benny produced Anni-Frid's 1969 single Peter Pan, and later her debut album Frida in 1971. Agneta, meanwhile, starred in the Swedish production of Jesus Christ Superstar in 1972. All four were building careers independently, while helping each other do it, which is the part the pop history books tend to compress into a sentence. Their first performance together came in April 1970, during a trip to Cyprus, entirely unplanned. They sang on a beach, and it turned into an impromptu concert for United Nations soldiers stationed there. Later that year, they launched a stage act called Festfolket, which means both party people and engaged couples, debuting on the 1st of November in Gothenburg. Reviews were mostly unkind, except for one song, Hey Gamle Man, which reached number 5 on the Swedish charts and held the top position on Svensktoppen for 15 weeks. That single exception showed them exactly what they were capable of when everything lined up. By 1972, they were recording People Need Love, credited to Bjorn and Benny, Agneta and Anni-Frid. And while it only reached number 17 in Sweden, it charted in the United States, a small signal that something much larger was coming. The following year brought Ring Ring, entered into Melodifestivalen and produced by Michael B. Tretto, with a wall of sound style that would come to define their recordings. English lyrics supplied by Neil Sedaka and Phil Cody. Many expected it to win outright. It came third. Even so, the song and album became hits across Europe and in South Africa, and manager Stig Andersson gave them a shorter name that year, calling them ABBA, the first letters of each member's first name, borrowed from a Swedish fish canning company, with permission granted as long as the band didn't embarrass the brand. The reversed B in their famous logo came later, from a photo shoot where Benny accidentally held his letter the wrong way. By 1976, that mirrored B had become a permanent part of their image, one of the most recognized logos in the history of pop music. Waterloo arrived in 1974 and opened everything up. Benny and Bjorn had been watching glam rock's rise in Britain, and the song they wrote for that year's Melodifestivalen reflected it directly. On the 6th of April, 1974, ABBA won the Eurovision Song Contest, performing in English, and Waterloo reached number 1 in 9 countries, while climbing to number 6 in the United States. SOS and Mamma Mia followed, with Mamma Mia holding number 1 in Australia for 10 consecutive weeks, driven partly by the television program Countdown. Their March 1976 Greatest Hits compilation became their first UK number 1 album, and Fernando, added as a new track, topped charts in at least 13 countries and sold over 10 million copies worldwide. Arrival came later that year with Money, 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 Knowing Me, Knowing You, and Dancing Queen, which climbs to number 1 in the United States. January 1977 brought their first major international tour, moving through Europe before reaching Australia, where enormous crowds turned out despite heavy rain and a bomb scare in Perth. That Australian leg was later captured in the film ABBA, the Movie. Voulez-Vous arrived in April 1979, recorded partly at Miami's Criteria Studios, carrying Chiquitita, I Have a Dream, and Does Your Mother Know? Greatest Hits Volume 2 followed with Gimme, 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 and in September they launched a North American arena tour that extended through Europe, including 6 nights at London's Wembley Arena. 11 sold-out concerts in Japan in 1980 completed what became their final major tour as a group. The Winner Takes It All came out that July, written while many assumed it reflected Bjorn and Agneta's divorce, though both denied it was personal. And Agneta admitted years later that singing it had been intensely emotional. Super Trooper followed in November with over 1 million UK pre-orders, its title track becoming ABBA's final number 1 on the UK charts. They also recorded Gracias por la Música in Spanish during that period, which opened Latin America to their music in ways the English catalog hadn't previously managed. The personal story had been unraveling alongside the professional one for years. Bjorn and Agneta had married in July 1971, with Benny playing the organ at their wedding. Their daughter Linda arrived in 1973, and son Christian in 1977. But the constant touring and pressure of living inside one of the world's biggest bands wore down what they had built. By 1979, At the commercial peak of ABBA's success, they separated. Agneta later described needing therapy to process it. Reports placed Bjorn with a new girlfriend within a week of the split. Agneta then sang "The Winner Takes It All," a song with the line, "Tell me, does she kiss like I used to kiss you?" and described the experience as both deeply emotional and somehow freeing, saying it was fantastic to perform because she could pour genuine feeling into every word. Benny and Annie Frid's split came early in 1981, publicly announced not long after Bjorn had married Lena Kellerschur in January of that year. The reason that emerged was that Benny had already met Mona Norklet, a television producer, whom he married in November 1981. Annie Frid's explanation was direct. She said they had simply grown out of each other, that after long and painful conversations there was no path back, that breaking up had become a necessity, with a lot of tears and a lot of discussions along the way before they arrived at it. Recording continued despite both marriages ending. The Visitors arrived in 1981, a more mature album than anything ABBA had made before, dealing with failed relationships, political oppression, aging, and loss. One of Us became their last #1 in Germany, and their final top 3 hit in the UK. Spring 1982 brought new sessions and talk of a tour, but by May and June the process had stalled badly. Only 3 songs were completed: You Owe Me One, I Am the City, and Just Like That, and neither Benny nor Bjorn were satisfied. The sessions were shelved. A compilation called The Singles, The First 10 Years was planned for Christmas instead, with 2 new singles, The Day Before You Came and Under Attack, neither of which broke the UK Top 20. The compilation itself reached #1. Under Attack became ABBA's final single, and Just Like That was never officially released, despite fan requests that have carried on for decades. Parts of it were eventually reworked for the musical Chess. Their final Swedish television appearance came on the 19th of November, 1982, and their last performance together was broadcast live to the UK from a Stockholm studio on the 11th of December, 1982, via the Late Late Breakfast Show with Noel Edmonds. Then it was over. What followed for each of them was almost a separate story. Agneta battled stage fright, fear of flying, and a deep difficulty with public life, complicated further by a relationship with a Dutch fan named Gay Vandenberg, who had spent years stalking her. She later admitted she felt she could no longer resist getting to know him. The relationship ended badly, with Vandenberg returning to stalk her again after their split, and she sought court protection. She moved deep into the Swedish countryside and largely withdrew from public existence. A new album, My Coloring Book, arrived in 2004, and then she retreated again. Annie Frid's story carried entirely different weight. Born in 1945 to a Norwegian mother and a German soldier during World War II, she grew up believing her father had drowned, until a reunion was arranged in 1977 when his niece recognized her from a television interview. She moved to London after ABBA ended, settled in Switzerland, and in 1992 married Prince Heinrich Reuss of Plauen, becoming Her Serene Highness Princess Annie Frid of Reuss. Her daughter was killed in a car accident in New York in 1998, and her husband died of cancer the following year. Her faith, she said, carried her through. Benny and Bjorn kept creating through all of it. Chess reached the stage in the 1980s. The Mamma Mia musical opened in London in 1999, arrived on Broadway in 2001, and has since been seen by over 70 million people across 50 productions in 16 languages, becoming Broadway's 9th longest-running show with 5,773 performances and grossing more than $7 billion. In 2018, something shifted between all 4 members. They began talking again, started working in the studio, and what was planned as 2 new songs grew into a full album, Voyage, released in 2021. Bjorn described the first day back. He looked into Agneta's eyes, and then into Annie Frid's eyes, and felt the warmth and the friendship and the bonds exactly as he had remembered them. The Voyage concert experience opened in 2022 at a custom-built arena in Stratford's Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park in London, the site of the 2012 Olympic Games. Digital avatars of all four members as they appeared in the 1970s perform the full set: Dancing Queen, Waterloo, Mamma Mia, in a production that has sold over 1 million tickets at prices reaching £181.50 and pumped £322 million into the British economy. For the third anniversary, on the 27th of May 2025, new material was added to the setlist, and Benny Andersson and Anni-Frid Lyngstad appeared together in the balcony. The crowd erupted the moment they were seen. Anni-Frid took the microphone first, told the audience she loved them, thanked them for decades of support, acknowledged that it had been nearly 50 years, and laughed that she was turning 80 that year. Benny stepped forward next and opened with, "Two men walk into a bar," making Anni-Frid burst into laughter beside him. After everything, the marriage, the divorce, 4 decades apart, new lives built in different countries, that moment communicated more about what still existed between them than anything either of them could have stated directly. Mamma Mia returns to the Winter Garden Theater on Broadway, beginning August 2nd, 2025, through February 1st, 2026, and Chess joins it simultaneously on Broadway, both shows running at the same time, both carrying Benny and Bjorn's names. 55 years after an unplanned beach concert for UN soldiers in Cyprus, the music still fills every room it enters.